Welcome to today's Valto webinar titled Goodbye Meta Workplace, Hello Viva Engage. Now, this webinar is all about how you're potentially moving away from Meta Workplace and actually moving towards Microsoft's Viva Engage as a potential replacement. Or it might just be that you're considering Viva Engage anyway and you're looking to get a bit more information about this. So today's webinar looks a little bit like this. We're going to give you a bit of an intro in terms of who we are, our company Valto, and then we're going to look at Meta Workplace and the key information that's been announced about its decommissioning. We're then going to look at a live demo of what is Viva Engage and giving you a full demonstration of everything that you should be thinking about with Viva Engage, and also what is Viva Connections and how does it play its role when thinking about Viva Engage. Then we're going to talk a little bit about Viva adoption workshops and how Valto help our customers get the best return of investment for Viva Engage. This is also going to include a live case study video and best practices and general FAQs that we get asked from all of our customers about how to adopt Viva Engage. So, little introduction. So, my name is Dougie Wood. I'm a Microsoft MVP and I'm also a solution architect. I've been working with Microsoft products for the past decade, and I've been helping people deploy Viva Engage to their organization for a number of years. So I know a lot of the kind of pitfalls and a lot of the things which are going to help you along the way. I also have with me today Hannah. Do you want to say hello, Hannah?
Yes, hello. So I am Hannah Jones and I am the Viva sales manager here at Valto. I would be the first friendly face that you would see when you first engage with us. And I'm just there to more so with the kind of hand-holding activity, really. So from your ways of working to start off with, all the way through the project through to training as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, Hannah. So what we also offer is not just Viva related services. Valto are Microsoft specialists providing consultancy, managed services and software development. We're actually split out into 5 separate areas. Now, Viva falls under our modern workplace offerings, but that also includes things like SharePoint, Microsoft Teams, and other Microsoft 365 services. We also offer managed services, so that's fully support desk, as well as our infrastructure offerings in Azure, and building out mobile applications using things like Power Apps, Dynamics, and other business application services. And in the past year, we've been doing a lot with Azure, AI Foundry, Copilot, and basically all the different AI offerings inside of Microsoft. Now we're going to jump in and take a look at what is Viva Engage with a full demonstration. Meta Workplace is dead, and you're considering Viva Engage as a possible replacement. I'm going to be exploring the benefits of Viva Engage and also telling you some of the key things you should be considering before migrating to Viva Engage. First off, let's talk about what has been announced. Some of the key dates that you should be aware of when you're thinking of migrating away from Meta Workplace into Viva Engage. So the announcement has come as that there's going to be 2 parts to this decommissioning of Meta Workplace. The first will be impacting us as early as August of 2025. Now, what will happen here is that the platform will be going into a read-only mode, which means that you'll still be able to access it to read content, download things. However, you won't be able to edit or maintain any of the existing content which lives on the platform. You will then have roughly about a year where in May of 2026, the platform will be completely shut down and you will not be able to access it at all in any way, shape or form. So your migration must happen as soon as possible. However, to limit the impact of your users, you should really be trying to get off the platform ahead of the August 2025 to make sure that your users still have an internal comms platform. So why choose Viva Engage? In fact, actually, with Viva Engage, you more than likely already have a license which covers this if you have Microsoft 365 for Business. It's built on the foundations of a product that used to be called Yammer. And so Viva Engage is not a new product which has only just appeared on the market. Technically, it's been around for decades as a product that's been known as Yammer. But it's just a modernized version of it, which looks better and it's got much better functionality than it ever used to. So let's dive in and take a little look at some examples of how Viva Engage is structured. Now I'm going to break this out into 3 core areas, but obviously there's a lot of sub areas that you need to be considering as well. So keep in mind that Valto are adoption specialists of Microsoft 365 solutions. So if you ever need a consultant to help guide you through this, there's a link in the description below to contact us to reach out, and we can help you through this entire process. First off, let's talk about licenses, as this is the starting point for Viva Engage. Viva Engage isn't drastically expensive, and actually it roughly works at about £1.64 per user per month. Now, of course, it's going to be slightly different if you're looking at it in any different currency, but it's roughly going to be that kind of price. It is an annual commitment, and it gives you access to premium community knowledge and leadership experiences, unique company branded employee apps, and centralized campaign management for communications. Now, Viva Engage can also be found in the Microsoft Viva Suite, which is a little bit more expensive, priced at £9.90 per user per month. But of course, you're getting way more Viva products inside of that license as well. Now, I just want to give a little high-level overview at this point, but if you do have any more questions, as I say, you can reach out to us for a free consultation and we can help you choose the best license for the products that you're trying to use. And if you're purchasing them in a large volume, there's a good chance that we could also beat the retail price as well. This brings me on to my second point when considering setting up Viva Engage. It's all about communities. So communities can be set up for all sorts of different things, but there's actually 2 different types of communities. You've got official communities, which are coming from the actual organization, and you have unofficial communities, which are essentially anyone can create. And as part of the setup phase, you want to be thinking about what types of communities you could expect to be created. And what I would be doing is thinking about, first off, what are going to be the official communities? So typically things like an all company community where everybody is a member of it. You might also have some form of, say, communications or something which is a little bit more still official, but it's something that's maybe softer kind of information like blog articles, useful guides, things like that, which you might be pushing out. And then you might want to consider creating communities specifically for adoption. We'll talk a bit more about that later on. And then also what I would be thinking about is communities which are going to be unofficial. Now, often the questions asked between what actually is the difference between official communities versus unofficial. Now, official communities, because they are manned and owned by the organization, they often will be sort of marked here as an official community, which gives you a little tick, a little bit like on X or Twitter as referred to, where you've got like a verified account. It's an official kind of account. You see this across quite a lot of different social medias as well, like Instagram and things like that. And essentially, this is saying to the user of the system that if you see any content that comes from an official community, it is almost like the gospel word of the organization. Whereas if you were to see something that was in, say, the running club or the golf team, which isn't an official community, then it's obviously not coming directly from the company itself. Communities are fantastic for bringing people together. As we can see here, we have a conversations thread, and this is where we can see essentially the story or what's known as storylines inside of Viva Engage of different conversations. Now, conversations are broken out into 4 different types of conversation. We can have discussions, which are essentially where we're posting our thoughts, ideas, or updates. We can have questions. Now, what I really love about questions is that it has a very almost Reddit type of approach. So it's a lot of Viva Engage is pulling some of the fantastic features that we see in other social media. So like in Reddit, where you can post a question and then you can have people upvoting it or marking things as best answers and things like that. Essentially, we can have that using this inside of Viva Engage. So you can see here we've got a question. People could then put in a comment or response. I could also mark the best answer as well. So it makes it much easier for people if they ever wanted to ask a question again, to actually find previous questions and see what the best answer was if there was going to be a lot of responses within that question. Now, the other types of conversations we have praise. So praise is essentially where we're providing praise to a colleague or sort of friend we work with on a project. And the final type is a poll, where we can actually put a little sort of questionnaire, survey type thing together where we ask people, and then we can see their responses sort of put in a sort of bar chart. And we can see that here where Rob's asked, where developers, what your favorite IDE for coding, PowerShell and PnP, and we can see a few different responses here. This was just a general discussion. This obviously is a praise post, and we can see a few different others further down the page as well. So this is what a community looks like. We can see the members of the community across the top. We can see a little bit of an info section. If we wanted to edit this, we can add a little bit of additional info about this community for people to see. Essentially, this is just a bio section that we can add a bit of text description just to summarize what exactly this community is being used for. The pin section on the right hand side is essentially where you can add files or links that are important to this community. Think of this as like quick links or useful links that you could add on here. And then we see community resources. Now, you can see we've got a files tab here. Now, essentially the files tab is a SharePoint library. So every single kind of community we create also has a SharePoint team site in the background, and this is where it stores all the additional files. We also have a OneNote which is created for it, as well as a planner for storing tasks and other things that we want to keep track of as part of this community. So this is fantastic, not only for sort of collaboration, but also for managing any sort of tasks or things which the community might be working towards. And just to round off this section, I would suggest maybe thinking about some super users, community leaders, essentially community owners that are going to be driving this from an official kind of point of view, who's going to be owning the official different communities, but also think about who's maybe going to own some of the unofficial ones. So maybe, is there any sports groups, for example, like people interested in golf or football or running or anything like that, book clubs. There's so many different types of communities that we've seen before, and this is really useful, especially when people are hybrid working or working from home. It keeps people together and kind of gives that kind of social feel even when we're all working remotely. I just wanted to pause to ask a quick favour. If you're enjoying this video, please do like. If you've got any questions, you can use the comments feed below, but also subscribe to our channel and go and check out all the other really useful content that we've got created on our channel. We've got loads of videos about Copilot, SharePoint, Power Apps, and so many other Microsoft 365 products that you might find really useful. And then the final thing I want to talk about when it comes to setting up your adoption plan for Viva Engage is thinking about not only the kind of overarching adoption strategy, but also how training is going to be provided for your organization. So Valto are actually adoption and change management specialists. So we've actually been recognized by Microsoft as a solutions partner for modern work, for helping people to adopt and basically take them through that change management cycle for making sure they get the best return on investment from modern work products such as Viva Engage. We do run full workshops to understand your requirements and then build a specific adoption strategy around how you and your organization are going to actually be using Viva Engage. Now, there's a number of things that we do recommend as part of adoption strategy that we'd run through with you during that workshop. But certain things include setting up, for example, an adoption community. So this is one recently we set up for Copilot. This is a little demo. And what we can do is we can provide in here resources, materials, useful links to where we recommend people to go and check out about, say, for example, Copilot. But in this case, obviously, it would be about Viva. We can also have, obviously, discussion points in here, but also leveraging those features like in Planner to create tasks for helping that adoption plan roll out. And I guess it's kind of like a start as you mean to go on. It's a great idea to create an adoption community because then you're learning about the product that you're using inside of the actual product. There's a lot of other things that we cover as well as part of the adoption strategy, including things like recommendations on who should maybe be rolled out to first. So quite often we look for super users from different departments, and quite often for a new product like Viva Engage, we would suggest to say maybe choose a couple of different people per department to have a little play around with it, to come up with some scenarios about how they would use it, what communities they would create it for, what maybe they would be replacing to use these communities instead. So maybe if they're using things like Slack or maybe even Teams in some cases, get replaced with these communities. One thing, now we've understood what Viva Engage is and how it looks, the other thing which sometimes people come to us and talk to us about is how they're going to use SharePoint in connection with Viva Engage. Now, actually, there's another component to the Viva suite which is often overlooked that's referred to as Viva Connections. Now, a little bit like how with Viva Engage, that was just Yammer that's been renamed. Viva Connections is just SharePoint that's been renamed. Now, it is a little bit more cut down, but if, say, for example, you want to make sure that your employees can get access to key information, policies, procedures, general kind of knowledge base information, all of that should really live inside of SharePoint and then be surfaced inside of your Viva Engage communities. Or you can even access Viva Connections as like a little tab inside of your Microsoft team. Now, often, as I say, we work with our customers to understand each of the personas of how your end users are going to be accessing Viva Engage, whether they're frontline workforce or back office administration or IT departments. And we'll map out different user journeys depending on their personas and how they're going to be using Viva as part of their day-to-day job. But Viva Connections is usually part of that journey. So whether they're accessing it through a mobile app, via Microsoft Teams, it doesn't really matter, but it is worth considering. So I'm going to dive in now and just talk a little bit more about what is Viva Connections and how you should be considering it as part of your Viva Engage adoption. Walking you through a demo example of Viva Connections. Now, I'm going to be showing you the different features of Viva Connections and talking to you a bit about different types of companies that use it and why they use it. I just wanted to start off by telling you, though, that Viva Connections is based on SharePoint. Although it has its own unique interface that you can access through Microsoft Teams, browser, mobile apps, it is based on SharePoint. So if you've already used to using some of the components of SharePoint, like news and events and some of these other kind of features, you're going to find it very easy to pick up Viva Connections. In fact, Viva Connections has a SharePoint site which is associated to it, and you can actually manage the dashboard elements of Viva Connections and see the analytical sides of Viva Connections directly from the SharePoint site. So let's talk about the first feature of Viva Connections, which is the news component. Now, this is the most visible, obvious feature of Viva Connections because it's pushed right to the top of the user interface. So let's take a look. The news bar across the top is essentially pulling from the news site that we've got selected in the background. As I say, it's based on SharePoint, so it's nice and simple to create news articles inside of SharePoint, which will then automatically pull through into your Viva Connections. Now, users can choose to cycle through and kind of see different news articles, and by clicking on a particular article, it will then launch the full article back inside of basically the SharePoint page that was originally creating it. So as you can see, this is our news article that's pulled through, and the full information about our Valto employee benefits, the EMI share scheme, can be seen on this page. It's also super easy to configure once it's set up. We can choose to change the sort of image if we wanted to. We could even use stock images or upload our own. I'm just going to look for some backgrounds, find a particular background that I like, say maybe this one, click on insert, and then we can change the background of our Viva Connections as simple as that. We can always choose to reset it to default as well if we like the kind of look and feel of that. Just by clicking save, we'll then make the changes. We can also see some additional settings on the right hand side for this new section. by default, it will be pulling the news from the dedicated Viva Connections site. Now, there's a few steps involved in enabling the Viva Connections site, which I'm not going to include in this video because that's a bit more technical. But for the actual configurations of the news, we can choose which SharePoint sites we want to pull news from, whether it's this site, or we can actually be specific to pulling news articles from other SharePoint sites as well. You can also choose to pin specific items if you wanted to promote specific content by pinning it and arranging it, the news articles and the contents, and even external news articles as well. You can do that using this feature here as well. The next feature is referred to as the dashboard. Now, the dashboard is essentially a collection of cards, which are almost like quick links in themselves. They're designed to provide users a quick way of accessing a specific app or functionality from not only Viva Connections, but other Microsoft products or even third parties that you wanted to integrate to as well. So let's go and take a look. So back in Viva Connections, all we need to do is scroll down and you can see we've got this dashboard here. Now, these are basically tiles or what they refer to as cards, which I have configured onto this particular example. So across the top, we have, actually you can build your own cards, and I'll show you this in a moment, but you can build your own cards. So what I've done here is I built a card which basically is asking our employees to share their thoughts and feelings about our recent strategy day, about the announcements made, and make potential suggestions for our next event. So by clicking on give feedback, that will then launch the Microsoft feedback form. Of course, then an employee can then go through, fill out the form, and then just click submit to submit their answers. But I should also stress that we could make this card into anything we want, anything that we've got a title, description, and a URL to click off to. We can actually have multiple buttons as well. So if there was maybe an option, say, provide good feedback or bad feedback, or whatever different types of options maybe you wanted to launch to, you can have multiple buttons there as well. We're quite keen at the moment on encouraging our staff to use the praise feature of Microsoft Teams. Now, this isn't Viva Connections specific, but it is a app essentially, or a card that we can put in Viva Connections, which will then open up the praise feature, which is essentially a feature of Microsoft Teams anyway. So we can choose who we want to send the praise to, what sort of title it's going to be. Is it awesome? Thank you. Congratulations. Put in a little note, choose a background color, and then send. And then we can also tag in our colleagues in that so they can come and like it and give additional praise on top of that to the employees. We've also got this find people option. So this is essentially like a lookup. So we can type in someone's name simply by clicking into the box, type in the name, select somebody, and then we can see their contact information. So it's a great way of finding people if we need to get a phone number, an email address, or start a brand new chat or phone call with that person. We can use the people card on here. We've also got events web parts. This is going to show any events. Now, again, we've configured this so we could pull out events from multiple different SharePoint sites. By clicking on view more, we can see the full list of events which are coming up. Top news. Now, we have had the feature of news, as I say, across the top of our Viva Connections page, but we might want to have almost like a secondary or B type of category news area, which is pulling news from somewhere else. So maybe the news which is across the top up here is news which is for everybody, whereas actually this top news here, we could configure it so it's part of the personalized experiences. It's only going to show news from a departmental site, for example. So say, for example, if I'm in the IT team, it'll only show me news which is related to the IT team. Next, we've got our OneDrive. Now, this is essentially showing us the latest file that I've opened. So I've opened up the business unit content plan recently, and I can choose to click on view more files to see more files from my OneDrive. So basically, it's showing me documents that I've been working on, and it's a quick way of getting back into those particular tasks. Also, across the bottom, we've got the ability to see assigned tasks. Now, this is coming from things like To-Do and Planner. I can also choose to add a brand new task if I wanted to. So, as is off the top of my head, I could choose which plan I want to add it into. the priority, the due date, and some notes around it, as well as a title for the task. But that's just going to show me some urgent tasks, things which are overdue, things like that, to make it easier for me to see what tasks which are coming up. We can also provide custom links. So similar to this card up here. Now this card up here, as I say, we have buttons and a lot more kind of description. If we just wanted a quick link, we can also provide a singular quick link like this to our Valto YouTube channel or any other third-party website which has got a hyperlink, a URL that we can link off to. We can also include more like quick links in here. So by click on view more, I can see things which often people want to quickly access, things like submitting expense requests, booking holiday, employee benefits, things like that, which we might want to link off to either third-party applications, a Power App, or a SharePoint page. And then finally, we've got a stream card here, which is essentially our CEO update. So it's allowing our employees to catch up on the latest announcement videos directly from our CEO. And by clicking view, they can see the latest videos there. Click on that and open up the video inside of Stream to watch it. Now, I should also mention it's really easy to add new cards and configure this. All we need to do is click on the edit button. And what that's going to do is put us into almost like an edit mode specifically for the dashboard. We can see what it's going to look like if someone wants to use it on a mobile phone. And we can also see what it's going to look like if someone wants to use it on a desktop. We can add in brand new cards by clicking the add card button. And here you can see there's loads of different options in here. It integrates with some of the other things which we've not talked about, like approvals. What else have we got in here? Shifts, if you're using the shifts kind of features of Microsoft Teams. Things like Viva Pulse, we can integrate as well. And there's also a whole host of other third-party applications which integrate nicely into this as well. But I was just going to show you the ability to actually create our own cards. And to do that's fairly simple. We just click on Card Designer and that adds a brand new card. We can then choose to edit them. And just like in any one of these other cards, by selecting them, you'll see little pencil options appear. That's essentially just how we edit them. Now, I told you, if you're familiar with SharePoint, a lot of this functionality is very similar to the way that web parts work inside of SharePoint. So a card is very much like a web part. We can then choose the template layout, whether it's just going to be purely just a heading, whether it's purely just going to be an image and a heading, or whether we're going to have a description. We can also choose whether we want it to be a medium or a large card. The difference is medium is just a kind of small square shape, whereas a large is more rectangular in that shape. We can choose whether we want to use a custom image or whether we want to use Microsoft's library of icons as part of the card. We can then give it a title just by typing in here. You'll see that it will change the kind of almost like the title of what it is here. We can then give it a heading. So this is my heading, and you can see that change, as well as a description. This is some text. And that's basically my card text ready. All I then need to do is choose a link. And also, if I wanted to have a primary and secondary button, you can also choose, like I've done up here, to only enable the primary button, but you can choose whether you want a primary and secondary button and where they're going to link off to specifically. As I say, it's really easy to configure. We can just remove them. We can drag them around so that it's really customizable. If we wanted to move this, we could just literally lift it up, drag it, and move these cards around to fit the page exactly how we want it to. Once we're happy with it, we just click on that republish button, and that'll then publish it for everybody else to see within inside of our Viva Connections page. The next thing to talk about is resources. Essentially, resources is a dedicated area for quick links inside of Viva Connections. Now, I know we've seen that we've got a couple of different types of link cards we can already add to Viva Connections, but there's also a dedicated area that you could add in small links, which are essentially like useful links, quick links, which really call it out and make it much easier for people to see dedicated links. So if I scroll down further on the page of Viva Connections, you can see this resource area here. So this allows us to add links that connect to popular organizational resources. So by clicking on edit, we can either add in manual links, or something I quite like to do is click on this import SharePoint links. And because this is related to our SharePoint intranet site, it's pulling through the navigation bar automatically, which I think is a fantastic feature. So we can include things like navigational links to our employee benefits, to our expenses, to our leave request, org chart, phone directory, maybe even some of the tools that we use, like Screen Connect or Zendesk, Halo, things like that, our policy system. Then once we're happy with that, we just click on import and that'll automatically pull through each of these quick links. We can then edit them individually if we wanted to change the icons. So we can choose a totally different icon if we wanted to. Click on select. And we can change the icons on each of these individual ones. I don't think I click save them. But yeah, there we go. So we've also got our resources area. As I say, it's a nice way of calling out the individual links on the page so they stand out slightly separate maybe from some of these other kind of busier areas in the dashboard. And then finally, inside of Viva Connections, there's an area at the bottom which is going to promote the use of more Viva products. So Viva, as I say, is a suite of products. It's not just one product. So Viva Connections doesn't just kind of exist on its own. There's so many other Viva products, including Viva Insights, Viva Engage. And essentially, once you start using these Viva products, they all start to integrate a little bit and will start promoting the use of other products within inside of the Viva suite. So if I scroll down further, you can see there's explore more Viva apps. We've got Viva in general, the Engage, Insights, Learning, as well as the Pulse options as well. So this is a fantastic way of kind of promoting more of the kind of apps of Microsoft Viva and getting adoption of all of the Viva suite applications increasing whilst people are using Viva Connections. Now you understand what is Viva Engage and also what is Viva Connections. The next step would be thinking about, well, how do you start the journey to adopting these Microsoft Viva products? Now, for us, every project that we engage with for a customer always starts with a workshop. This is a discovery session where we go through and understand your unique requirements. Although there is a lot of learnings from other projects as we've deployed this for companies of all different shapes and sizes, there is still going to be a unique element of understanding how this is going to be used and how you're going to get the best return on investment by deploying Viva to your organization. So we'll want to walk through with you a number of different things to understand your requirements in a lot more detail. Let's talk a little bit now about how and what is included inside of one of Valto's Microsoft Viva adoption workshops. I'm going to walk you through Valto's Microsoft Viva adoption workshop. Now, this is the first step that you can take to ensuring a Viva adoption is successfully rolled out. I'm going to walk you through what a typical Viva workshop looks like, and then at the end I'm going to explain what the next steps are following on from a workshop. We always start off a workshop with introductions. As part of the introductions, we want to understand your history, your company goals, as well as your own personal goals. What would a successful adoption of Microsoft Viva mean to you? We also want to look at what the goals of Viva will be. So why you are trying to do this, what you're trying to achieve, and where you're up to in the journey of deploying and adopting Microsoft Viva. We'll then give you a demonstration of the key Viva products. Now, we typically focus mostly on Viva Engage as well as Viva Connections, but we can also dive into Viva Goals, Insights, Learning, Pulse, and all of the other Viva products and services. Then we move on to the needs assessment. In this portion of the workshop, we focus on setting objectives, not only for the workshop, but also the follow-up report that you'll receive after the workshop. It'll include things like timeframes, who are the key stakeholders, the priorities, as well as how to measure those specific objectives. We'll then talk about use cases, mapping them out against your business goals. We want to identify specific use cases based on job roles or departments, and then we'll discuss the best product for the job. We want to be thinking about key areas such as employee engagement, increases in productivity, as well as knowledge sharing. We'll then use a bit of a calculation to prioritize those use cases by looking at the effort versus the impact that it will make. The next portion of the workshop will look at the integrations of existing or potentially new apps or third-party integrations that you might use along with Viva. This will start off by looking at current ways of working, how are you currently working, and then considering how Viva maps to that. We'll look at some of the Microsoft apps that you're currently using, things like Teams or SharePoint, as well as that any third-party applications that you're using or wish to include as part of their scope of work. We'll then discuss the best practice for deploying these individual products, as well as that any security considerations that you might need to consider. Then we'll talk about what will remain the same, so what are we going to continue using and what will change, so either new products and applications or different ways of approaching using the applications. Then we'll move to talking about training and adoption. This is where we talk about defining target user groups, whether it be leadership, frontline workforce, or different social groups. We discuss who should receive training, how is that training going to be delivered, as well as what materials will be provided alongside this. Will you train the trainers yourself, or would you like Valto to do that for you? We can also talk about what support do you require post-implementation, as well as keeping momentum going through either webinars, competition, or using the praise feature. This is something Valto found very successful using the praise feature in Viva Engage to give people a good feel about the platform and keep them returning back there, increasing that adoption rate and success as an outcome. So this was just a whistle-stop tour of what the Viva Adoption Workshop includes, but essentially this has covered off the key areas that you need to know. The objective of our workshop is to ensure you understand the services and realise the true value that Viva products can bring to your organisation. Following on from the workshop, you'll be given a report with recommendations within 1 week of the final workshop. The workshop is typically either a full day on site or broken out over multiple sessions remotely via Teams. It is also offering fixed prices for setting up and the adoption packages following on from the workshop, and typically these projects start within 4 weeks and most adoption packages last somewhere between 6 to 12 weeks. We do offer a 1-hour free consultation, which you can book using the contact form below and have a conversation with one of our adoption specialists to discuss how we can help you. If you've got any questions at all, please feel free to get in touch. So that is our paid for workshop. However, we do get started with a free 1-hour consultation. So if you want to book that in, there's a link in the description below to get started. Now, I want to talk a little bit about a recent project that was a deployment of Viva Engage to a medium-sized organisation, but they actually had a number of different office and regional locations dotted all over the UK. And in fact, they wanted to make sure that these different Viva Engage communities had certain areas which were isolated, certain documents and policies and things like that, which only, say for example, location or Office A could access just the Office A documents, and Office Location B could only access Office Location B documents. So that was all part of this Viva Engage deployment. So we needed to split a lot of things out to make sure that we achieved this. They also wanted to make sure that they were retaining their sort of social engagement and having social areas. They also wanted to make sure that people could access this on mobile devices. So we had to work with them to understand the different personas, the different user journeys. Some people were going to be accessing this as a field worker, as a frontline workforce via a mobile phone. Some of them, I think the sort of line managers even had iPads, tablets, things like that. Back office staff were going to be accessing this through laptops, through their desktop computers on Microsoft Teams, and we helped them map out all the different user journeys and use cases about how people are going to be using this on a day-to-day basis. So let's hear more from Helen about their successful delivery of Microsoft Viva Engage.
So we were looking to roll out Microsoft Viva Engage across our organisation. Honestly, we had no idea where to start. We discovered Valto from a YouTube video and then reached out to ask for help. They kicked things off with a really helpful workshop, but it wasn't just about the basics. They really tailored it to our needs and challenges. They helped us get internal buy-in, which, if you've ever done something like this, you know how crucial that is. When it came to actually deploying Viva Engage, they made it so smooth. They handle the technical side of things, but they also made sure our team knew how to use it. We had training sessions that were super practical, no jargon, just what we needed to know. And they followed up with some great materials, like guides, recordings of our training, those we still use today to keep everyone engaged. But honestly, if you're looking to make Microsoft Viva Engage work for your organization, then Valto's the way to go. They made the whole process way easier than I expected.
I also think it'll be worth us talking about some kind of FAQs around what we get asked quite a lot from clients that we're working with who are wanting to adopt Viva Engage. So firstly, I think it's probably good to talk about what makes a project successful.
Yeah. So projects succeed and fail often comes down to a number of different things. One of those things is the level of engagement from the leadership team. So they really have to be on board. They need to understand what the benefits of this project is going to be, and also what is going to be changing. Now, this actually comes as part of one of the things that we do in the workshop is understanding the personas. So who are going, basically, let's say, for example, typical personas might be frontline workforce, management team, back office, sort of administration team, IT sort of users. So these are typical types of personas. Now, once we understand them and we understand their sort of ways of working and use cases of how they're going to be using Viva Engage, you can then properly create materials, training materials, videos, webinars, whatever it may be, that helps people understand what's going to be coming down the line. And that makes a massive difference to the success of the project. Is actually the adoption doesn't start once the tool is deployed. It starts way before that, trying to get people on board with what it is. So look for some quick wins. Things like getting the sort of, as I say, senior leadership team on Viva Engage early, maybe doing some kind of CEO posts or Ask Me Anything type of areas and questions and things like that. But that typically drives a lot from there. But I'd be interested, Hannah, to know what you think drives a successful project.
Yeah, I think from my side, I think it's very important to get as many stakeholders involved as possible from the clients that we're working with. So I think, especially for these upcoming projects, I think it's good to get those people excited as well, but also so that they can put their opinion in, I suppose. I think different departments are going to have different opinions and they're going to have different ways of working. So things like, from HR to finance to marketing, for example, head ofs, they're all going to do things very, very differently.
Yeah.
I think 100% I'd say it's good to get as many stakeholders involved as possible. Moving kind of onwards from that. So next I'd say, what do you reckon are pitfalls that we should avoid when it comes to these sorts of projects?
Yeah, I mean, following on from what you just said there about getting the stakeholders involved, something we see that's very common is that not the wrong people, or should I say, not having the right people in the room, not having the right stakeholders involved from the first side of things. So I've seen this on both sides, but I've seen it where, say, for example, it's just treated as an IT project, and instead of the kind of the people, the HR people, the comms people being involved, and making it more of a cultural change project, it's treated like an IT type of project, and it just loses all of the magic which really makes Viva Engage a useful product to be using, and all the kind of transformations that you can make in terms of the employee engagement and user experience. All that just kind of goes out the window, and it just gets looked as a kind of a moving from platform A to platform B, and it doesn't really have that kind of the kind of the passion that goes into actually making the employees' lives actually sort of changed. And actually on the other side of the coin of that as well is actually I've seen it where it's just been a comms team or a HR team that look at deploying Viva Engage, and they don't ever consult IT right up until the project is trying to get underway, and all of a sudden the IT team get wind of this and they see it as a security concern, they see that they've not been consulted, and they put a load of red tape around the project, and it becomes really difficult. So no matter which side of the fence you're on, make sure that the other side knows that the project is coming and they're aware of it and they're inputting to make sure it's a successful project.
Yeah, of course. No, I completely agree with that. And I think from my end, I think even kind of rolling on from that, I think from my end, when it comes to pitfalls, I think, it's also good to understand the products themselves.
Yeah.
I think a lot of pitfalls are people that don't understand the products well enough. So for example, you can actually miss out on features. So I think especially with Viva Engage, I think, people very much just move on to, it's Viva Engage. And that's all that it is. Whereas there's a lot more to it. There's a lot of different bits and bobs that come with that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was going to say that one of the other things as well is making sure that you are getting the full, as you're saying, Hannah, return on investment, looking at all of the features and benefits of this. And not just seeing it as like it's just a like for like replacement of something like Meta Workplace. There's loads of other stuff that it can do that Meta Workplace can't do. So you should be basically making sure you're getting the most from this. But in that same kind of breath, I should also say one of the other pitfalls I see is people overcomplicating what Viva Engage should be. One of the real benefits of Viva Engage is that it's very simplistic. It's very easy to get going with. It's very quick to get going with. It's a lot more simplified than something like Microsoft Teams is, as an example. But you could still overcomplicate it. I see people that try and launch on day one with way too many communities that they just didn't need. And if anything, that sometimes gives a bit of a bad taste because like its first impressions count. And if people land on there and they get overwhelmed and they don't use it all, they think it's all worthless. It devalues it to have too much. So sometimes it's better to have quality related content or communities rather than quantity and having too much. And the final thing, just I was thinking on this kind of pitfalls was kind of not properly having a training and adoption program put in place. This often happens, as I say, when we see projects which are just run by IT teams and they put out very minimal kind of comms about what's going to change, how people are going to be accessing things, and the features and things like that. So not having a proper training adoption plan definitely is something that you need to avoid as a pitfall.
No, I
Cool.
completely agree. No, definitely. And then just last question, which is probably one of the most important questions. Why partnering matters. So, is this something that people can do themselves? That's what we get asked a lot. Can I do this myself? Why should I partner with someone like Auto?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is one of the things which people often run into is the fact that it is quite simplistic to set up a community inside of Viva Engage. It's quite simple to get going in that sense. However, you can miss out on two key things when you're just doing it as a DIY project. One of those is the kind of the wider considerations, things like security, who's got access to different areas and things like that, and best practices around some of the settings which enable that. And realistically, you're going to need expert knowledge to understand that because the back end of Viva Engage, although the front end is quite simplistic in terms of creating communities, the back end is still a bit messy and you're going to need some expertise. Just as a little side note on this, for example, we've talked about how Viva Engage is actually just it used to be called Yammer. So Yammer's been around for decades and it got rebranded to Viva Engage. But there's things like what tripped us up when we were first looking at Viva Engage is if you want to be an administrator of Viva Engage, that role in the background of the admin center is still called a Yammer admin. So you could be looking for days for things like where's the Viva Engage admin role, but actually still referred as a Yammer admin role. So there's loads of things like that which you could easily walk into as a bit of a gotcha, which if you had a Microsoft partner like Valto holding your hand and making sure that you're adhering to best practices, you're going to be in a much better place. Ultimately, Valto's role is to be your guide. It's to sort of shepherd you through all of this and make sure it's as seamless and pain-free as possible. We provide structured workshops, as we've talked about. We provide sort of comms, templates, emails, training videos, which are bespoke to you, by the way. They're not just generic training videos. We sit down and we understand how are you going to use it, how are your users going to use it, and we create bespoke training videos, what we call cheat sheets, which are like PDF one-pager type of information, and things like that, which we roll up as part of an adoption package and a support package to ensure that you're getting the best return on investment. Is there anything else, Hannah, that you think why people should be using a partner for something like this?
I think more so it probably just follows on from what you said, really. I think it's more so just that industry knowledge. And I think obviously having these workshops is with our, Microsoft consultants. And I think they've obviously got a lot of experience in, a lot of different industries. We work with all different industries from retail, manufacturing, it doesn't end really. And I think it also goes from, we work with 10-man bands all the way up to, thousands of people. So we've got all that different knowledge there of what we've seen previously. So I think it's quite nice as well that we can also help you with what your needs are and what you're wanting, what your requirements are. But then I think off the back of that, we can also give recommendations of what we've seen in similar industries, which I think is really, really helpful as well.
Exactly, yeah. So just to round off then, I say if you've got any final questions, you can stick them into the comments below. We'll make sure everyone's questions are answered. We do offer a 1-hour free consultation, so if any of this is resonating with you and you need some expert help and guidance, there's a link in the description below. You can book your 1-hour free consultation. You'll likely get through to Hannah, myself, or maybe one of the other Viva consultants. We'll just have a chat. We'll understand what you're looking to achieve, what platform you're previously coming from, whether it's Meta Workplace or another platform, and what you're looking to achieve by adopting Viva Engage. So we look forward to hearing from you today, and keep your eyes peeled for more webinars that are coming from Balto. Thank you.